So let's move on to the lesson. The first lesson is sources. Sources means a place, thing, or a person from which something originates. Okay, so that means sources. So in this chapter, you are going to learn about sources required to the study of history, types of sources of history, importance of the archaeological sources, importance of Halmidi inscription, importance of oral sources in history. Okay, so now we will go in detail regarding what is given in this chapter. So history is a systematic study of the past. Okay, you all know that history is written on the basis of sources. So if there is no source, so as I mentioned earlier, source is the starting point from where it has been happened. It can be, we can take out the details of the place, how it originates, a person, how he has been lived in that particular place, so we can get through that source. So hence there is no source, so no history is the stance of history. So history is created with the source. If there is no source, then no history has been created in this world. Historian is like an advocate. So here they are comparing historian as an advocate. Why? The advocates present their arguments on the basis of followed evidences and sources related to their case. Okay, so advocates will be dependent on their evidences. So without any evidence, so they can't able to argue. The same thing, the historian also depends on the sources which he gets. So similarly, historians collect the sources, subject them to critical examination, analysis, and then write the history. Whenever direct sources are not available, they need to make assumptions. That means they will collect some informations about that particular place or person, and they will assume themselves and based on their available sources. Okay, so what sources they will get, with that they will write about that place or person. Hence, often an event is analyzed from different perspectives by different historians. Perspectives means view. Okay, we can get different views from different historians. Okay, so what is a source? Human beings had created many facilitates to read their life since ancient times. If the things used by the human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources of the historians. Okay, so hence the agricultural tools left by the earlier people, forts, coins, inscriptions, arms means tools, weapons, temples and other religious buildings are considered as source to write history. Now you get what is the meaning of source. Similarly, the written documents and the literary works are the main source of history. The materials needed for writing of history are the primary sources. These sources can be divided into two. One is literary sources, another one is archaeological sources. Archaeological sources are nothing but the scientific sources of materials remains, as we discussed here, like tools, pottery, jewels of the past human life. Okay, literary sources are nothing but the writings which they have been written in the past. So here literary sources can be divided into two types. One is the written literature, another one is the oral literature. So we will go in detail what is the written literature. As the name indicates, written means the writings. So in the sources we get the few writings of the poets or authors regarding the past living of the human being. So, written literature is the main source of literary sources. Literature can bring the contemporary social life of the times of the writer alive to us. Contemporary means the living social life. So, here the author will be writing, so or the writer will be writing how the social life was there during his period. So, a literary work portrays the then existing aspects of life either directly or indirectly. So what here mentioned, they will write the living aspects of the peoples who were living in his time. There are two types in written literary forms. Okay, so one is native literature and another one is the foreign literature. Native, what is native literature? Literature created by Indians in native languages is called as the native literature. Okay, so the literature created by Indians in native languages are said to be the native literature. Literary works in Sanskrit, Prakrit, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Kashmiri, Gujarati, Oriya, and in many other native languages are the sources. So, how they will take it out? These are the languages which have been used in the native literature. Kautilya's Arthasastra, King Hala's Gadas, Gadasaptasadi, Vishakadatta's Mudra Rakshas, Kalhana's Raja Tarangani, Banabhatta's Harsha Charita, Bharani's Tariki Firusahi, Chand Badrai's Prithiviraja Raso, Pamba's Vikrama Arjuna Vijaya, Sangam literature, and many other such literary works can be named as native literature. So these all comes under native literature. Why it is named as native literature? As it has been written in their native languages. So these works portray then contemporary social, religious, economic, cultural, and the political life of the people. So in these works, they used to write about the living, how they lived in those era means period. Okay, in foreign literature, many foreigners who visited India as travelers, ambassadors, businessmen, officials, and missionaries have recorded their observations and experiences in their works. So, these works are considered as the foreign literature. So, you have to get through what is the difference between native literature and the foreign literature. Megasthenes Indica, Fahain's Kokoki, Huansang's Sikuki, Ptolemy's Geography, Ferishta's Tariki Ferishta, Babur's Tuke-e Babari, and others are the important sources. Apart from these, there are many other writings that serve as the sources. So these are the few foreign literatures, otherwise we can say as the works written by the travelers who are foreigners. In these works also, one can clear the depiction of them contemporary social, political, economic, cultural, and administrative aspects. So here also the works represent how the peoples were living in those period. Exaggeration, hyperbole, and loyalty to one's master are apparent in native literature. So in native literature, people used to tell something better or worse than what it is really meant to it. So okay, so that is called as exaggeration. Hyperbole means excess. So they used to say excess about the people or excess about the how the people were there in those times. Similarly, in foreign literature, due to the lack of local knowledge, many misgivings are recorded. Though in foreign literature it has not been written in the native language, some of the misgivings were recorded. So these are the drawbacks of the written literary sources. Historians have the challenge of writing history keeping in mind all these limitations. So the historians face the challenge like what to write and whether it is correct about the people who lived in those time. Hope you understand what is written literature. Okay, the next one is the oral literature. Oral literature means folk story, folk songs, folk legends. Legends are nothing but tales, kathas, they will say, right? Proverbs or jokes. Ballads are nothing but poem or song narrating a story in a short stanzas. Okay, so they will perform this in before of the people, and others that pass on from one person to another by word of mouth. So they will orally literate the persons about their what the behavior, how the human beings were there, and explain about how their economic and cultural activities were going on in that period. Since the beginning of human life, human beings are passing on their experiences in the form of story, songs, ballads, orally from generation to generation. So this was happening from generation to generation. So the folk people have created ballads about their local heroes. There are ballads on Kumararama, the Nayakas of Chitradurga, Kempakauda, Tipu Sultan, Sangoli Rayana, Kittur Chennamma, Sindura Lakshmana, Meadows Taylor, and others. Legends mean the local mythological stories. Every place will we have own legends. Okay, so they used to say about tales. For example, see here they have given there are legends behind the names and places like Saravana Belagola, Bengaluru, Koppala, Pattadakallu, Kogarna, and Mysuru. Similarly, every village and town have their own legends. So legends, what I said over there, is the tales. So how Bengaluru was developed, how Saravana Belagola was developed, how Mysore was developed. So they used to say about tales regarding the place or regarding the persons, how they developed in their period.